Xcelerator in Knott's Berry Farm is one of my favorite roller coasters I've ever ridden. I find there's just something special about the launch on this coaster that gives it an extremely addictive quality, and every time I got off of it when I was there, all I wanted to do was hop right back in line. In fact, I'd even go so far as to say I prefer it over the coaster formerly known as Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point, a strong endorsement from an Ohioan. Unfortunately though, Xcelerator closed in March of 2022 for maintenance and has yet to reopen almost a year later, with nary a word from Knott's Berry Farm about when that will change. Given the situation with Thrill Dragster and what we know of Cedar Fair's discontentment with these rides, when I learned about this coaster's extended downtime, my very first thought was, well, there goes Xcelerator. I guess we'll never get to ride that thing the way it was ever again. But after a somewhat contentious Twitter conversation with Josh from Station Wait, I decided to do my own deep dive into the situation and try to come up with my own analysis about just what the hell is going on with this ride. KI Coaster Guy here, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the future of Xcelerator at Knott's Berry Farm, what some of the possibilities are, and then at the end of the video, we'll be going over my predictions for the future of this wonderful attraction. So with that, let's get into it. Now, the first possibility I want to talk about is that Xcelerator may be scrapped, which, I'll be upfront, I think is the least likely thing to actually happen. I was surprised, however, with how many people, especially in the Knott's community, think this is exactly what's going on. Now, the number one reason people give for why they don't think Cedar Fair will take down the ride is that they just went through the expensive process of repainting it. But to be fair, I don't think that actually proves this. I think if they have reevaluated the situation and determined they'd rather put something else there, Cedar Fair is perfectly capable of making that decision and removing the ride regardless. Google the sunk cost fallacy. However, I do think it's true that this, in addition to the ride's continued operation until March of 22, shows that at least up until several months after the accident with Thrill Dragster, Cedar Fair clearly had no intention to tear down this ride. In addition to that, as we'll get into later, the park reportedly continues to do maintenance on Xcelerator to keep it from falling into disrepair while it's not operating. I also think they have other options, so I just don't see this happening, at least not anytime soon. In my opinion, any rumors that Xcelerator will be removed are more a reflection of fans' anxiety regarding the ride's future than anything else. Of course, it remains a possibility, and we could have to come back and reevaluate the likelihood of the ride being removed as more information becomes available, but given the facts of the situation right now, I feel pretty confident that we can go ahead and scratch this one off the list for the time being.
Access granted.
Another more likely possibility is that Xcelerator's hydraulic launch system will be removed and replaced with an LSM, or linear synchronous motor, launch instead. According to an article by the Orange County Register, following the incident with Thrill Dragster and the failure of an important piece of the hydraulic launch on Xcelerator keeping the ride down, Cedar Fair has been reevaluating the future of this ride as it currently is. While that's not something the park has said in an official capacity, it wouldn't be surprising at all as it tracks with reports about the attitude inside the company towards the maintenance nightmare these rides have presented for them, with some even reporting that Cedar Fair has determined that being in a year-round park simply puts too much strain on Xcelerator's hydraulic launch system, making downtime and costly repairs a constant problem. As much as I love the launch on Xcelerator, from an objective point of view, replacing it with an LSM makes a whole lot of sense, at least from a maintenance and reliability perspective. And I think we could assume that over time this investment would pay for itself in reduced maintenance cost. But KI Coaster Guy, I can hear you asking, is this even possible? Surely the trains couldn't get over the top hat without massive layout changes, like a longer section of track or a swing launch. Well folks, that's one of the questions I set out to answer for this video, and from what I've learned, I believe the answer is yes. Like many things in life, unfortunately for me, this comes down to a math problem. As it's currently configured, Xcelerator accelerates from 0 to 82 miles per hour in 2.3 seconds over roughly 157.5 feet of track, which is approximately 1.6 Gs of acceleration. An LSM launch caps out around 1.2 Gs. Therefore, in order to get to the ostensibly required 82 miles per hour, the launch would have to accelerate for an additional 1.1 seconds, necessitating an additional 30 feet or so of launch track. Using the measuring tool in Google Maps, we can see that there absolutely looks to be enough track left over here after the 157.5 feet currently used for the hydraulic launch. Pulling up the side view, we'd see that based on this measurement, we'll be just at the start of some inclined track here. A couple things on this. Xcelerator launches from the station, so we know that the launch actually begins somewhere in here, not here, outside of it, meaning there may actually be enough room to install an LSM on completely flat track. An LSM system is able to be installed on any track that's not banking or twisting, leaving tons of room on the incline for additional LSM stators to be installed, even vertically if need be, to offset any loss of velocity as the trains go up the top hat. And real quick, I'd like to extend a shout out and thank you to Reddit user Follow1 and others from the roller coaster subreddit who helped me work out the math and the mechanics on this. All this to say, from what I've seen so far, it does indeed seem like refitting this coaster with an LSM launch is absolutely an option for Cedar Fair. And I'd even go so far as to say I believe a refit like this, or something similar, is in the ride's future one way or another. But do I think that's the most likely scenario right now? Well, that I'm not so sure about. So now let's get into the third and final scenario I want to go over today, and that's the possibility that Cedar Fair will simply repair the hydraulic launch and reopen Xcelerator as we've always known it. Now this is my favorite solution, but as I touched on earlier, when I heard about this extended closing so soon after the incident with Thrill Dragster, like a lot of you, I took it for granted that Cedar Fair had finally had it with the unreliability, high cost of maintenance, and otherwise problematic nature of these attractions. However, after doing a deep dive on this, I'm gonna have to concede to Josh that at least right now, things are actually not looking too bad for Xcelerator reopening with the hydraulic launch intact. Knott has been playing their cards pretty close to the vest here, but one thing they have told the press, in the same article from the OC Register that I referenced earlier, is that they're in contact with Intamin regarding replacement parts for the ride. I've also been told by Knott's employees that there's a part specific to Xcelerator that they need to resume operation, but that it has not yet been delivered. Apparently, Knott's has been receiving semi-regular shipments of parts from Intamin for Xcelerator, but not whatever it is they need to spin the ride up again. If this is the case, my bet is that these shipments contain parts needed to keep the launch maintained during its extended downtime. In fact, again, according to employees, what we're seeing whenever there's a small team working on the ride and everyone gets excited thinking it's about to open is actually simply that, maintenance being done to keep the ride in tip-top shape until it can be repaired. One theory I've heard is that CF is planning to reuse parts salvaged from Thrill Dragster's launch, which seems possible, but I do wonder why it's taking so long, if that's the case, to get those parts over to Knott's, as it's my understanding that Thrill Dragster's launch was disassembled several months back. I also don't think it's necessarily a given that all the parts from Thrill Dragster's launch system are compatible, given Xcelerator's status as Intamin's first hydraulic launch coaster. Another very interesting theory I've heard about why it's taking so long to source this part is that Intamin has outsourced production of their hydraulic systems to a shop somewhere in Ukraine. It certainly makes sense to me that Intamin might contract that work out, rather than keeping machines tooled to fabricate parts for a launch model they aren't selling anymore. And it would also explain why this is all taking so long, with the conflict over there and everything. Unfortunately, I searched everywhere and asked everyone I could think of who might know about this, from ELTORORYAN to the biggest Intamin fanboy I know, and there wasn't anyone I spoke with who could refute or confirm this for me. So, as of right now, this is just speculation. And I'm sure we could speculate on all kinds of reasons why getting this part is taking so long. For instance, perhaps they really are sourcing the parts from Thrill Dragster, but they first needed to be shipped to Intamin for some kind of refurbishment or recertification process. Now, that's something I've made up. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but it seems plausible to me. Point being, there are probably things involved in this process that you and I aren't aware of, or at least I'm not aware of. In addition to seeing some signs that Knott's continues to maintain the launch, I wonder why they wouldn't remove it entirely if they had plans to replace it anytime soon. You could argue, as I'm sure some will, that they haven't done this yet because they don't want to tip their hand and show what their plans for the ride are yet. And I understand that point of view, but I'd also question how valuable that secrecy actually is to Cedar Fair, with parts for these rides apparently becoming so hard to come by, you'd have to assume they hold some value. Wouldn't Cedar Fair want to get these parts out of the elements and sell them off? So, why is Knott's Berry Farm being so quiet about this? Where is the communication? Some have theorized that it's simply because the park wants fans to focus on the reopening of Montezuma's Revenge and are holding this back for marketing reasons. In my humble opinion, the only way I can see this being the case is if they're going to do a refit or even a reimagining a la Thrill Dragster of this ride. In addition, I think it's a pretty good bet that for a park as busy as Knott's is, getting one of their headlining attractions open again is a pretty high priority. If we're operating under the assumption that the plan is to repair the launch, as the park has seemed to publicly suggest, then I think the simplest explanation for why they haven't announced a reopening date yet is because they simply don't know when the repairs will be complete. Before I get into my final analysis, if you're enjoying this video, I'd like to ask you to consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss anything. And as always, a like rating is very much appreciated and it's one of the most helpful things you can do to support this channel. So with that, it's now time for me to take my best shot at a prediction and analysis of what's going on with Xcelerator. I think Cedar Fair's plan in the short term is to reopen Xcelerator with the hydraulic launch repaired sometime within the next year. Perhaps even using salvaged parts from Thrill Dragster as well as maintenance stock left over from that ride to keep the launch working properly. In the long term, however, I think we'll see this ride close for an extended period of time again in the probably not too distant future as the company retrofits it with a new launch system. I'm going to hedge my bets here a bit though with one caveat and add that if the closure lasts another 12 months or so, then I think the likelihood of it reopening as is drops quite a bit. And at that point, I'd probably be looking more to see a refit or even a redesign of this ride before it opens again. Of course, in the end though, only time will tell what the park has in store for this attraction. Hopefully, with vacation season on the horizon, we won't have to wait much longer to hear more. It'll be interesting as more information becomes available to revisit this and see how close I was. To those of you for whom Knott's Berry Farm serves as your home park, or even if you're just someone for whom it's your favorite park, as a person from the other side of the country who rarely has occasion to visit Southern California, I sincerely hope that whatever Cedar Fair does with this ride is something you'll be satisfied with and can enjoy for many, many years to come. Anyway, folks, that all clear means I'm up, and out of here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.